Hey Christina, how are you doing tonight? Hey Tiffany, everyone who's coming in. So we're going to be doing an Airbnb Q A tonight. Um, I don't know who of you guys saw the video that we were doing. I can just kind of actually let me turn around and I'll show you here. Sorry, my dogs are going to be problematic. Let me flip this around. All right, so I'll go to my performance here. We go to earnings, and this is just Airbnb. Keep in mind, this does not include VRBO. So here we are. This kind of shows you what we've done for the year so far. What's actually been paid out is this 68,636. We have another 15,499, 15,500 booked earnings. We have 84,135 booked for the year. This is all gross, by the way. And if you were to bring VRBO in there, this number would jump up to 107,000. So the thing is it's not really hard to do this. It makes a great second income or a passive income, I should say. And for me, to give you kind of a really good example, if you are somebody that follows me regularly and watches my content regularly, you probably know that I lost my job at the beginning of June. And thankfully for Airbnb, while I'm looking for another job, we're not really hurting that much. We're not having to change our lifestyle that much. So this is really great and it's really easy. So I'll flip you around. Well, I'll just go ahead and leave it here. See if I can figure out how to prop you guys up and show you this. There we go. Cool. All right. So I can show you by month as well. So June on Airbnb was 12,821, and July, which is the current month, what we have booked is 14,325 has been paid out with another 65 expected. That's 28,48, not including what we've done on VRBO, which brings that number up to about 26,000 in total. So when my wife and I got into this, we got our first Airbnb in South Carolina. In Myrtle Beach, we were down there vacationing. This was actually after the loss, a pregnancy loss, and we were trying to recoup and kind of do a little bit of a reset. And we got into an Uber and somebody told us how inexpensive property was down here. And so we looked it up and we got a condo. I mean, long and short is we got a realtor and we ended up buying a condo. It needed work. We put about 10 grand into it, but we got a condo a mile and a half from the beach and we spent 74,000 plus the 84 renovating it, and we rented it out and we made money. It didn't make the money that the places that we have now do. We sold that place after about 2 years, but in those 2 years, it also not quite doubled, but almost doubled in value. And then we were past the 2 years, so we'd have to pay capital gains. But a buddy of mine had been trying to get us into this for years, and then we realized how easy it was, and we bought it. So what you can do is if you're buying a place, what I recommend, I mean, everybody's different. There's really no right and wrong way to do real estate, right? And by the way, if you guys have questions while I'm going through this, please drop them below so I can answer them. But there's no right and wrong way to do real estate, right? So for me and for Alyssa, what we wanted to do is we wanted to find places where we like to go. So we enjoyed going to the beach. We enjoyed going to the Myrtle Beach area. So we bought a place there. We rented it out. Even if you only pay the mortgage and the utilities out of what you do, it's still a win because the place is still increasing in value. Now, what we ended up doing is we sold that place in November of 20 to purchase another cabin in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. That's where our properties are, and we got a great deal on that, which there really aren't any deals there at all. But we bought a almost 3,000 square foot cabin. We paid 465 for it. We had to put 50,000 into it. It's worth about 850, and I can't break it down by itself on this screen, but I can tell you that I'm anticipating that the little place is going to do about 75 by itself, and the big place I'm expecting to do closer to 100. So our big months are coming up. August is a little slow right now, but we're not there yet. So I expect more bookings. We have no bookings for September, but in October, November, and December, bookings go way up, and we start getting in the neighborhood of $600 to $800, $900 a night around Christmas. So those numbers really kind of, jump up exponentially. So the way you can do this is you can technically buy it as a second home if it's more than 100 miles away from your house, maybe even 75, but you can buy it as a second home, which means you only have to put 10% down. So if you're buying like the condo that we bought, for example, which was 74,000, you only needed $7,400 to put it down. For the bigger place, the first cabin that we bought in Pigeon Forge, we paid, I want to say it was 234. So we had to come up with, um, you know, 23,000, but we had made that money from the first property. So we really didn't even go into our pocket. We just used the money from the first place and used that as the down payment. And all that place needed was an update on furniture. So we spent maybe 5 grand in furniture and got it rented out, and it did 75,000 the first year. I can tell you kind of the difference between an Airbnb or short-term rental and a property management company is that the previous owner of our first cabin was doing about 35,000 a year gross, and in the first 12 months we had it during COVID when we actually had to leave 24 hours in between guest check-ins at some point. We still did right at $75,000. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of it. What questions do you guys have on how to get into this or managing it? We can talk about managing it. In fact, while I'm waiting for questions, let's chat about that. So we live in Nashville. A lot of you guys know that. So we manage these properties. Oh, and I can go and turn it around. Let me turn it around real quick so you can look at me. So we manage these properties from Nashville, and the Myrtle Beach property was about 9.5 hours away, and the Pigeon Forge properties are 3.5 to 4, depending on traffic. And what's really key, really important is that you have a really good, your cleaners are key. Your cleaners can make or break you, right? So if you don't have good cleaners, that's a problem. But what you do is you interview those. You definitely want to try to get out to the property at least once a quarter, inspect it, make sure things are going the way you want to. But again, there's no right and wrong way to do this, right? So I can see that my buddy Jeremy has joined this live, and he's welcome to say something if he wants. And he's the one that got us into it. So he's the reason why I'm doing this, trying to pay it forward. And he doesn't have vacation. I mean, he's got a few Airbnbs, he's got some long-term rentals. This is a man that retired at around 40 years old um, because he built himself a bunch of properties. In fact, he actually just purchased a 6-unit building in a college town, and I can just say it, it's in Statesboro, Georgia. So he's got a lot of properties there. He got into it because he had a brother that was getting ready to college, and he thought it would be nice to buy a place, let him and his friends rent it from him. That kind of became disastrous. Don't rent to your family. Um, no, yeah, they are now. So they're all now in Tennessee. But before we had one in South Carolina. But they're the closest one. Well, they're in Pigeon Forge. They are about 3.5 hours away. But like I said, we managed our South Carolina one, which was about 9.5 hours away. And then we were recently in Orlando, and we stayed at an Airbnb, and that person lived in California, and they typically get out there once a quarter. So you can definitely run them from another state for sure. And if it's something that you're looking for to have like a vacation home that somebody else pays for and you make some extra money on, then yeah, pick a place that you like that's going to have good income. So the thing about beach places, though, I'll tell you, unless you're like in South Florida or someplace that stays warm all year long, you're going to have a slow season. It doesn't mean that you're not going to make money. It just means that you're going to make the bulk of your money during your summer, spring, and maybe early fall months. In the winter, you're going to be pretty dead. You might get a few people here or there. But Jeremy, he did something different. He started buying properties in Statesboro, renting them out long term, then bought some short term rentals because his is in a college town. So parents come and visit, alumni come down for games. There's a myriad of different reasons why people come there, but his isn't really a vacation town. His is just where they're at. So it doesn't have to be a vacation place. I just think that's fun. That's what we're doing. But like I said, there's really no wrong way to do this. And then you can kind of keep growing in it, and you can see where it starts to snowball. We had one little place that was doing 23,000. We ended up, using, a year after a year and a half of ownership of that, we bought the second place in Pigeon Forge. That one did 75 total, plus what the other little one did. Then we sold the little one, doubled our money, used that to the down payment on the bigger place, And between the two of those, so far, we're at 107,000 in booked earnings. So it starts to snowball, and we're going to be looking for another property, a third property in that same area, probably sometime starting in January. And the only reason I'm saying in January is a couple of reasons. One is the market is a bit overinflated right now. I'm sure a lot of y'all know that. And the other thing is that according to our mortgage person, Fannie and Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have decided that they're not going to take on any more second homes. And so, which is what they're doing, or, so you'd have to do investment. They're going to make you put 30% down, but that's going to all change again in January, which is only 4 months away. So right now, for the area that we're looking at, there's not going to be a lot on the market. Anyway, this is just for us in our specific situation. There's not going to be a lot on the market in particular because we're getting into our hot season. I mean, May, June, and July are hot. August and September slows down a little bit. And yeah, you have to do 20% down on a commercial loan, as Jeremy just said, um, which is still not bad depending on what you have and how much you're spending. But, for me, after December, people are going to slow down. They'll have made their money. Pigeon Forge doesn't get slow, but it does get a little slower January, February, and starts to pick up in March, around spring break again. So that's typically when we do all of our maintenance and any updates and stuff like that. But yeah, well, what questions do you have? Or Jeremy, do you want to say anything that I can elaborate on, that I'm missing here? Like I said, Jeremy does things differently. I have mine in vacation towns, and Jeremy has his in a college town. You could pick a place in your city, which you mean if you do a place in your city, you can't really do it as a second home, but you could still do 20% down. But if you're near hospitals or college or sports arena, something that people come to your city, your state fairly regularly, that could prove to be profitable as well. So, I live in Nashville, and we've often toyed with the idea of buying something in downtown Nashville because Airbnbs here do really well. You're thinking about doing the Poconos. Okay. Well, yeah, you and I are going to talk about that offline, Nick. But yeah, what questions do you have? Because I know you had some questions for me, and I'm sure that they were good ones that other people might want to know. Oh, yeah, let's talk about rental arbitrage. Thank you, Jeremy. Okay, so if you guys don't know what rental arbitrage is, this is a way for you to um, rent places, or let me phrase that, rent out places, do short-term rentals without you having to put hardly anything down. So let me explain how it works. And before I do this, I'm going to plug something. It's not a sponsor. It's just very helpful. There's a podcast called Bigger Pockets. Check it out. It definitely helps with this type of stuff. But yeah, rental arbitrage is where, let's say that I have a place for rent. You come to me and you say, hey, and let's just say it's in Nashville because I'm familiar with the area. And you say, hey, Justin, I want to rent this place that you have in Nashville, but you know what? I want to know if it's okay if I sublet it or if I do short-term rentals on it. You know what? I don't want to do the short-term rental thing myself. I don't want to furnish it and deal with all that, but you're going to pay your monthly rent on time. Cool. I'll sign the lease to you, and you can do the short-term rentals. You furnish it, and you're not putting an investment down. You're just putting probably first and last month's rent, and then from there, yeah, the Airbnb automated on YouTube too. Yeah, that's another one to go to for that. But basically, what you do is you go to a landlord, try to rent the place from them. You have to be forthcoming with them because if you're not, it's problematic. But a lot of them, if you talk to them, hey, short-term rentals aren't dangerous. Most people are just going on vacation. You're not having a lot of shady transactions or things going on there. Um, Let me rent it from you. I'm going to pay the rent on time, and then you can take in short term rent that place. And the great thing about that, especially if you're kind of just getting your feet wet, um, is you're not out a lot of money. So you put some furniture in it and you kind of handle it, and that's about it. So it gives you an idea of what it's like without having to put a massive investment in. So you know that's definitely a really good way to do. Is rental arbitrage is really a good way to do it. Now I will tell you, I don't have any rental arbitrage. We've talked about doing rental arbitrage, but it's going to take some work because you're going to have to talk to landlords and convince them, and that's not necessarily as easy as you think it would be. So you have to be prepared when you go and talk to them. So yes, and you don't have to fix anything that goes wrong. Oh yeah, that's another good one. Hi, Allison. So yeah, if I mean obviously if you have guests damage something, you need to have them cover it. Now Airbnb's okay about this. My daughter's coming to visit. You want to come sit with me? No. Okay. Um, yeah. Well, here's the thing. It's not that it's necessarily easy. I mean, but easy money isn't really a thing, right? So Airbnb protects its host to some degree. So if you do everything right through them, I don't know yet. I'll ask her when she comes back in here. If you do everything right, have everything documented, you get things put in at the right time, as far as a claim goes. And the way that you have to do that basically is, let's say you have a turn that day, your cleaners go in or you go in to clean it, and you notice if something's damaged. Sometimes you got to pick and choose your battles, because you could get a bad review if you go after them for money, and people like to lie and say that they didn't damage anything. Um, but if they're not willing to pay for it, a lot of times Airbnb will. But like for me, if the damage is less than $250, I just eat the cost of it, because it's just not worth having a bad review over that. If it's more than that, then you can go that way. But for the most part, people are pretty good. We typically don't rent to under 25, although, renting to under 25 is not necessarily a bad thing. I've noticed that Gen Z tends to be really good guests most of the time. So the few times that we've made that exception, we've been really happy. So it really just kind of depends on what the area, that you're doing. But most people aren't coming in and destroying. And, there are ways to mitigate some of the challenges, of people throwing a party or doing things. Um, that would be a little bit shady. So, for example, on our properties, we have a camera. We have keyless entry. We have Nest. We use Nest door locks, but there's a bunch of them. We use Nest thermostats, so we can make sure that people don't, set the thermostat too high or too low. Make sure they don't damage anything. And the thing is, you kind of get to a point where you just kind of know when somebody's being shady. I'll give you an example. So one of our last guests in South Carolina, it was during the slow season, and we hadn't had that many bookings, and so I was excited that we got one. And the woman says, "Hey, it's just me and my two kids. We're coming down. We just want to get away." It was a same day booking. I don't do same day bookings anymore. You have to have at least 1 day notice. Um, but same day booking, and she shows up, and everything was good for a moment. And then we notice on our camera, more people arrive and more people arrive. And this is a 1,000 square foot condo, actually a little bit under that. And there were literally no less than 40 people that converged on this place. And even despite having all of those people there, we got Airbnb involved immediately. We got the police involved immediately, because it was a party, and that goes against Airbnb's rules, especially during COVID. Um, so we got them involved. She was good about it. She didn't really argue with it. I basically agreed to her, and I know that Jeremy on here will not agree with the fact that we chose to do this, but we did anyways. I told her that I would give her her money back minus the cleaning fee, because I was going to have to have my cleaning person come in, but I'd give her the money back minus the cleaning fee if she would leave and not damage anything. And she didn't. She didn't damage. She didn't take anything. It was fine. It was just very messy. They were literally there a total of 4 or 5 hours. They used every single towel in the place. All the sheets were dirty. The beds were unmade. So that was kind of a sketchy situation. But you kind of learn. We have a divergence when it comes to shifty guests. We do. It depends on how it is. Jeremy's rentals are a little bit different than mine, so that's why I'm a lot more. How old was the guest? Guest was in her 40s for sure. I mean, we really don't tell you how old they are, but they were in their 40s. You could tell. She had older kids, teenage kids. Um, well, you might have not typed shifty. I know what you meant, but I'm going to say shifty because I don't want the TikTok police to get mad at me cussing, although I do sometimes, anyways. So that's one example. We've had examples of, you're going to get bad guests. That's just going to happen. That's par for the course. But the amount of money that you make, like, let me show you this. Give me a second. Let me get it pulled up. I'm going to try to do this without showing somebody's name. Let me show you one stay that I have going on right now. Do I allow pets? I don't think I'm going to. I do not allow pets, but that doesn't mean that you can't. For what that's worth, you definitely can allow pets. All right, yeah, I'm going to show this one. I don't want to show this guy's name, so let me see if I can. Give me 1 second here. Okay, cool. It doesn't show any identifying information. But yeah, let me turn it around this way. They don't, because a lot of pet owners aren't responsible. That's why they don't, and it's not worth the damage. So, okay, let me see if I can show you here. This guy here, this guy John, he's checking out tomorrow from one of my properties. That stay was by itself was $4,856. Again, that's the gross. So, again, it's good. So you can see shorter stays. This one right here, all right, there you go. This one right here, I discounted because these days just weren't booking because it's a Monday and a Tuesday, checking out on Wednesday. This one was 2046, 1691, 2185. All of these long lines are VRBO. This one's 2400. This one's 832. This is just a 2-day stay. So you can see how lucrative that it can be, and you definitely pay your mortgage pretty quickly if you have one. And I like having a mortgage because it's something that you can write off on your taxes. It's depreciation. Well, not depreciation, but you can write off on your taxes. Airbnb is really easy to use. It's VRBO. You can actually merge your calendars too. So what's great about that is if I get a booking on VRBO or I get a booking on Airbnb, I don't have to run back in last minute and worry about a double booking. They will, if once you set it up, they will sync that calendar. And then if you want to go on more sites, which I'm really considering doing in the next week or so, is getting it on a lot of sites. I've been doing research on like Guesty and a few others. Um, I can go in like booking.com, HomeAway, and well, I think HomeAway is VRBO now, and several others. Do you have months that just don't book? Not full months, not here. But when I had the place in Myrtle Beach, yes, usually from mid to late October, you had a lot of golfers in October. You'd have people maybe around